Does anybody on the panel have any other imaging that they do at baseline besides what we've discussed? Anything in newer imaging modalities or?
For second opinions, and when someone's coming in and they've had multiple injections and they've been resistant, I often will get fundus autofluorescence. When you're thinking, for me, the two sort of masquerade syndromes most commonly you're thinking about are either polypoidal or central serous, and I think fundus autofluorescence, particularly for central serous, can be useful. So that's the one that I will add, not at baseline on the new naive patient who walks through the door, but on someone who's coming in for a second opinion.
Mm-hmm. And what are you looking for in fundus autofluorescence?
Well, often you're looking for patterns of chronicity of fluid there. So it can be both hypo or hyperreflective changes, but you'll often see almost the fluid troughs of what may have been present in chronic fluid. And one of the things we're starting to look at now is the ultra-wide field fundus autofluorescence patterns, and you can often pick things up in the periphery that were totally asymptomatic. Looking at bilateral changes as well can help kind of pin you down with some of your differential on those tough to treat patients.
Do you think there's any role for fundus autofluorescence in light of some of the findings from the CAT study, for instance, about atrophy? Do you think there's any role of getting, say, a baseline fundus autofluorescence just so you can see what changes over time?
I think that's something we're learning about. It's tough because not everyone has it in the office, and we run in again when you're going from office to office what you have access to. I think it's something that we should look at. What our patterns are in neovascular AMD are going to be different than what they are in dry AMD. It's been looked at extensively in dry AMD, but I think that frankly, for looking at the atrophy that we're discussing, OCT may be the better measure of that long term and the easier access, I think, for more people out there.
Does everybody here use any different imaging, OCT scan patterns, or is it all cubes and line scans? Is there any pattern that we should be using besides those?
Go ahead.
I've started looking at enhanced depth imaging as well, because now there's this issue of does persistent anti-VEGF suppression cause choriocapillaris thinning or reduce blood flow to sort of the heat sink of the retina? So I don't know what to make of it, but I'm starting to get a baseline enhanced depth imaged OCT, and then maybe one at the 6-month mark and a year mark, and I'm going to review what that data shows us, which I started about 6 months ago. Yeah. But that's the only other pattern I get.
So I don't do true EDI, but essentially the pseudo EDI on the serous. Again, part of it is a diagnostic thing. Whether I'm deciding to get a fluorescein, I tend to get fluoresceins on the bulk of my new patients. I always get them on second opinions. But again, if you're thinking of not, looking at the choroid, if there's anything atypical, can be useful for things like central serous. And I'm also starting to look at whether the advanced RPE analysis has any utility. In wet AMD, I'm not sure that it does, but it's something that is newer that's out there on some of the newer software patterns.